We're back. That's right. Education Committee. And not entirely excited about this one because I don't know what the mayor's office can do about education. It's really not a city issue, it's a state issue, other than showing things that more money can be wasted on. But let's just get to it. It's an hour and a half.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Graves. I will now call the call to order the Education Committee of the City County Council.
Boots already playing with
Today's
his
date is
phone.
Wednesday, May 14th, 2024. I will now ask my fellow councilors to please introduce themselves, starting with the councilor on the left at the bottom, first row.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Derek Cahill, District 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael Paul Hart, District 20.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Bain, District 21.
And the first row there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan Boots, District 3, Washington, Lawrence Townships.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Carlos Perkins, District 6.
Doctor of Ministry. Never forget that.
And thank you all again, Keith Graves. I chair the committee here tonight, and we do have a couple of items on the agenda that we will gladly listen to, but I do want to talk a little bit first, just a brief statement, if it's okay. I want to welcome everyone to our Education Committee meeting. But before we dive into this important data that we're going to receive tonight, tonight's presentation, I'd like to once again to my colleagues and to everyone listening express my vision here as the chair of this committee. I absolutely hope that my colleagues will align with and support me in my endeavor, particularly in light of some of the data that we received and some of the data that we expect to see even tonight. And it's my firm intention and unwavering commitment that by 2030, every 3rd to 8th grade student in Marion County will achieve proficiency in literacy.
Really? Really? Okay, well, that's probably not going to happen unless you lower the bar so low that every dipshit can pass it. But they speak on both sides of their mouth, and you'll probably listen to that, or you'll probably hear that here in a little bit, where they want to make sure that you're getting the best and brightest, but at the same time, you just want people to graduate. This is like the homeless problem. Oh, we want to make sure by X amount of years there will be no longer a homeless person on the street. You know, everybody will be housed. If you remember back in like 2018 or 19, Hawkset had this plan by like 2023 or 24 where there were going to be no more homeless people in Indy. And how did that work out? It's gotten way worse since 2019. But to continue with Mr. Keith Graves, never going to happen.
Reaching grade level standards. Now, we're far from it. We've got some work to do.
No.
The literacy challenges facing Indianapolis demand our attention, and I firmly believe it is our duty
It's
as
not.
city county councilors to mobilize every resource at our disposal to ensure the academic success of our youth. Quite literally, the future of Indianapolis is in our hands.
And why it's not. Education should not even be on the platform. That is a state issue. If you know what, if Graves was smart, if he was actually a little bit above the 80 IQ, he would be telling everybody, every parent, that you need to get more involved with your children's education and stop relying on the state to fix everything for you.
I look forward to this committee engaging with superintendents, school administrators, educators, students, and community stakeholders. Together, we can explore collaborative strategies aimed at realizing the critical objective of empowering our children to excel in reading. To underscore the gravity of our mission, Director of Office of Education Innovation, Patrick McAllister, and his team are here today to provide a comprehensive analysis of current student performance data. This presentation will underscore the pressing need of our active involvement in addressing this issue. I'm absolutely thrilled that we've got a partner over in OEI with Director McAllister, and I want to thank him for his dedication to this cause. I've seen him in action, team, and he is absolutely the right person for this role. So I'm looking forward to us collaborating with Director McAllister. And I look forward to the impactful discussions and actions that will emerge from our collective efforts tonight and going forward. We've got a little bit on the agenda. We've got something called the Pacer and the Fever game tonight, so I'll try to make it quickly. First item on our agenda is
How funny is that? Hey, you know, education is really important. Listen, we got to put every resource that we can into making sure that we have smart children in Indianapolis. But we need to make this quick. We got a Pacer and a Fever game going on. Well done, Mr. Graves. Well done.
a presentation, overview, explanation of employee Indy work within education.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So I think we're going to switch the order, if that's all right. We're going to present the academic data first, and then Employee Indy is going to go into some depth about the work that they do and Indy achieves, if that's okay with the committee.
Do we need to do anything legal? Okay, great, no problem. Yep, we'll then start otherwise with addressing questions that were raised in the previous presentation from Director of OEI, Patrick McAllister.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. It's great to see you all again. Thank you for coming and hearing this presentation. My name is Patrick McAllister. I'm the Director of the Office of Education and Innovation. I have my colleague Madeline Gabatz here. She is an academic analyst on our team, and she's the one who compiled this data set for you. So what we're going to show you tonight, just briefly, is academic performance data compiled by the state of Indiana, the Indiana Department of Education. We'll talk a little bit more about the data sources as we go through, but we're going to look at a broad set of data across the county. We're trying to present this clearly without kind of with some analysis, but not kind of at the depth that you might need or might be interested in. Obviously, if you have follow-up questions, we'll do our best to answer them, but this is data that the Indiana Department of Education has collected. So Maddie's going to drive, and I'll be here to answer questions if they come up as the committee has it. So Maddie, you can take it away.
Thank you. So my name's Madeline Gabatz. I've been with OEI now for almost a year next month. We're going to be looking at 2022-2023 academic data. This is the most up-to-date data that we have, given that the 23-24 school year has not concluded yet. All of this data has come directly from IDOE, and it's on their website, publicly accessible. We'll be looking at a comparison between 10 Marion County districts, Indianapolis public schools, and 38 mayor-sponsored charter schools. Note that we do have more than 38 mayor-sponsored charter schools, but not all of our schools adhere to this data. For example, our Excel centers are adult schools, so we won't be including those in analysis. There are also 15 non-mayor-sponsored charter schools that are within Marion County, but those are also not included in this data set. So I'm going to begin with enrollment to set the foundation of the differing student populations between each district. If you look at all 10 of the Marion County districts together, compared with IPS and mayor-sponsored charter schools, the 10 districts by far have the majority of our student populations with 104,371 students, followed by IPS with 22,027 students, and mayor-sponsored charter schools with 15,824 students. However, if you break the 10 districts down individually, you'll see that a majority of students attend IPS schools. This is followed by Lawrence Township, Perry Township, and Wayne Township with around 16,000. Then mayor-sponsored charter schools follow close behind with 15. The two districts serving the least amount of students is the School Town of Speedway and Beech Grove City Schools. Keep these two numbers in mind as we dig into proficiency a little bit later on in the presentation.
They're going to try and skew the numbers. I already know it. Or not skew the numbers, but be like, well, because they have slower numbers, that means there's blink, blink, blink. Guaranteed it. That's why they're saying it.
Here is enrollment by socioeconomic status. So those navy blue bars represent students who qualify for free reduced lunch, and the red bars are representative of students who are paid lunch.
Dude, look at this. Holy jeez. Look how many people are getting free lunches. That is kind of wild. I'm surprised of like how high Decatur is. Let's see if I can change myself. Whoop, there we go. I'm going to constantly be moving myself. I already know it. Interesting stuff here. Yeah.
Just to pause there real quick, for those of you who aren't school folks, the FRL number is typically used as a proxy for poverty. It's imprecise, but it's the best indicator from the data that's collected by schools. And so when we say FRL, we're meaning students who require support from for free and reduced price lunch.
So by the way, I'm guessing that's part of the school budget too. So imagine of like how many millions of dollars of your tax money is spent on that. And I know some of you will be like, "Oh, well, you know what? Some of these people, they don't this is the only way that they can eat and such." I was like, "Yeah, but just remember your lunches that you're paying for is going towards that. Like your lunches are going to be more because of that." And then so when you aren't at a certain tax bracket, this is just another way to manipulate the system. And some of you are going to get pissed off about it, but guess what? That's just how the world works.
So you'll notice that every Marion County district, with the exception of Franklin Township, has a higher percentage of free reduced lunch students than paid lunch students. Franklin Township has the lowest amount of free reduced lunch students at 49.3%. But it's pretty close to their paid lunch student percentage at 50.7%.
That's pretty freaking hilarious, actually. Franklin Township is also kind of an elitist township.
Also note that mayor-sponsored charter schools serve the highest amount of free reduced lunch students at 78.3%.
So if you're paying X amount of dollars for lunch and it goes up every year because nothing ever gets cheaper, everybody else's upness for the free reduced lunch don't bother them one bit.
Over the next 3 slides, we have enrollment by ethnicity. The navy blue bars are representative of Black students, red bars, Hispanic students, gray, multiracial, and then green is white student populations.
And I'll pause there. These are also categories that the federal government has created, and so that's why we use those as the indicators for race across our data sets.
I didn't realize how many Black students there were in Pike Township. I thought I didn't know what to expect, really. Very interesting stuff, though.
Serving the highest
the rest of
number of
everybody
Black
else?
students
Oh.
is Pike Township, with 61% of their student population being Black. The highest Hispanic student population is IPS, with 35.3% of their students Hispanic. Beech Grove has the highest number of both multiracial students at 9.5% and white students at 64.1%.
Really?
Serving the lowest amount of Black students is Franklin Township, with 11.4% of their student body being made up of Black students.
So, I don't know if I need to point this out at all. But you already know what I'm going to say.
They also have the lowest amount of Hispanic students at 8.7%. And then the lowest serving multiracial and white students is Pike Township with 5% multiracial.
What is a
7%
multiracial, though?
White. Lastly, for enrollment, we have enrollment by special populations. This is referring to our English language learners, which are the navy blue bars. And then red is our special education students, or students who have an IEP, an individualized education plan.
Those are like the special people, like the autisms, the Down syndromes, that kind of stuff.
The district
Perry Township has the highest non-English people or non-English speaking people. That's crazy.
that is serving
My
the
mind
most
is getting
English
blown right
language
now.
learners is Perry Township with 28.4%. And then serving the least amount of English language learners is Beech Grove at 4.5%. Serving the highest number of special education students is Beech Grove with 20.6%. And the least amount of special education students is Lawrence Township at 12.7%. So now we'll go ahead and dig into proficiency and graduation rate. For proficiency, we'll specifically be looking at the state tests iRead 3 and iLearn. iRead 3 is a test taken by all Indiana third graders. Some second graders do take the test, and if those second graders pass, their score is reflected in their following year's data, so they follow their cohort. Speedway has the highest proficiency in iRead 3 at 87.5%, but I do want you to remember that Speedway has the smallest population of students at only 1,800.
So what? That doesn't matter. Unless they're going to say that, well, we have a low amount of students and we have a high amount of teachers, which that means the teacher has to deal with less students, then I would agree. That does say a lot.
So it's hard to compare a district like Speedway with a district like IPS with there's such a large difference in student
Well,
population.
didn't she say that Beech Grove also had a low student people too, or low student population? But they're lower than Washington Township and Franklin Township.
Numbers. Speaking of IPS, they are at 60.6%.
Yeesh.
So, Chairman Graves, it looks like there's a question. Are you okay with that?
Just a quick question. The testing grade for iRead 3 is what grade level?
Third grade.
Third. Okay. Thank you.
Dude, he used to be a high school principal for Pike Township. He was a high school principal for 3 years, and you're telling me you don't know what iRead 3 is? Don't believe me, look it up. True story. Unbelievable. But anyway, so these scores, if I remember right, they're combining everybody on these proficiency, whether it's non-English learners, the special needs people, and the general education people too. So to me, those numbers could be skewed if you were to say, with non-English learners, it's this amount of proficiency, special needs is this, and general education is this. I think there's a bigger conversation to have.
So IPS and mayor-sponsored charter schools are pretty neck and neck at 60%, IPS slightly higher at 60.6%, mayor-sponsored charter schools at 60.28%. These are trends that you'll kind of continue to see through the following few slides.
What she's saying is the IPS and mayor-sponsored charter schools are kind of garbage.
And if we go back to the enrollment by FRL, I want to note that the part of the reason we're going to see IPS and mayor-sponsored charter schools at those proficiency levels is because they have some of the highest free and reduced price lunch students. And unfortunately, in a lot of places, proficiency correlates with FRL in a negative way. We're working very hard to address that, and we don't see that as what the future holds. But if you're looking at large data sets, that's fairly common to see.
So what he's saying is, hey, if you're getting free lunches, there's a good chance you're an idiot and you can't pass a reading test. Unless he's saying like more poverty people are a lot more dumb, then I would probably agree with you because, not to say, one would say that poor people are dumb, which is why they're poor. I'm just saying.
This next
Councilor
slide.
Perkins, looks like you have another question.
At some point, I'll ask for a recommendation of what you think might be a solution to address the issue of the correlation between free and reduced lunch and proficiency rate.
Absolutely.
Oh, we just got to make sure we give them free lunch. That's all. We need to give them a lot more taxpayer-funded resources. That's all. Because, eventually at some point, we don't know when or if, it should increase the proficiency. Didn't you know? More money gets thrown at a program. Things should go better, right?
This next slide looks at iLearn combined proficiency. So iLearn is a state test taken by all 3rd through 8th grade Indiana students. Every year they take a math section and an ELA section. When I refer to combined proficiency, this is indicating that a student has passed both ELA and math, not just one or the other. So for combined proficiency, once again, Speedway has the highest proficiency percentage with 46.2%. Warren Township has the lowest proficiency.
Hey, Pike Township boys. I don't feel so good. Wait, isn't Carlos Perkins in Pike Township? So weird. So weird. Franklin Township. Look at that, huh?
Percentage at
IPS
8.9%. And IPS and mayor-sponsored charter schools are once again kind of tied at 14.8% for IPS and mayor-sponsored charter schools for 14.54%. The following slide is iLearn ELA proficiency. This indicates that a student has passed ELA. It does not necessarily mean that they have passed math, though. So for Speedway, again, highest proficiency, 56.8%. Warren Township with the lowest at 16.10%. IPS and
Pike
mayor-sponsored
Township at
charter schools
22,
both at 22%.
Wayne Township 21. Not looking good.
Similar trends again for math. These are students that passed the math portion, didn't necessarily pass the ELA portion. Speedway, once again, has the highest, 55.7. Lowest is Warren Township, 14.2. And then IPS, mayor-sponsored charter schools. IPS is slightly lower than mayor-sponsored charter schools at 21.10. Mayor-sponsored charter schools at 22.16.
IPS still taking the L's, though. No surprise there.
Next is graduation rate. Go ahead.
Give me 1 second. Yeah, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question on this combined proficiency. These are tests taken only at the 3rd and 8th grade, not through 3 through 8.
3 through 8.
3
So-
through 8,
Yes.
okay, inclusive. And then when we're saying ELA proficiency, those are who only ELA and not the math, or possibly both?
Possibly both. So it accounts for students that may have passed, or that did pass ELA and may have or may have not passed math, but they definitely passed
Dude,
ELA.
what the crap?
Gotcha.
These
Thank you.
can't even trust
But the
those
combined
numbers.
numbers are students that pass both ELA and math.
Correct.
Okay.
I think it might be more efficient if we let her and director get through their presentations. They might answer some of the questions that we have.
Not a bad idea.
And Mr. Chairman, we could maybe pause at the end of a section and see if there are questions about that section.
Yeah, that's fair. I've got some questions as well, so
Okay.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, lastly for this section is graduation rate. As Indiana students move into high school, test data gets a little bit trickier because there are several different pathways that a high schooler can take.
IPS still
So for the
taking the
purpose
L.
of this presentation, we're just going to look at grad rate.
You know what's weird is you had all these proficiency rates that were really low, but the graduation rates are rather high. It's interesting.
The highest grad rate is Franklin Township at
99.
99.05% of their students graduating. The lowest grad rate is Warren Township at 79.24% of their students graduating. And then IPS is at 81.52%, mayor-sponsored charter schools at 82.17%. Any questions? Okay.
I think we've got a couple.
Oh, yes?
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to get your overall thoughts on we look at the 3rd through 8th grade proficiency, combined proficiency of the iLearn, and obviously pretty low across the board. Even our highest one is less than 50%. And then we look at our graduation rates, and most of them are in the 90s.
Is there something
Do we
happening in
just
high
have
school?
much higher standards for 3rd through 8th grade tests than we do for graduation? Why is the graduation rate so much higher when all through elementary and middle school they're not meeting the standards?
So I think we're kind of looking at two different things here. We wanted to show you typically what we use as proxies for where a school's at. And so that's why we looked at proficiency and then graduation rate. A couple of things about iLearn. We, about a decade ago, transitioned from a test that had been fairly stable for a while to a college and career ready test that had college and career ready standards aligned to it. And then we changed the test several times over a decent span of time. So we're now just getting stable test data for iLearn after it being implemented for a couple of years. It's a harder test than we've had in a while, and I think one of the things as a state that we didn't do particularly well in that transition was work with teachers to implement new standards, new curriculum, to make sure that teachers had what they needed to be on grade level. So to get those proficiencies numbers to where I think they need to be, which is students across the board ready for college, it's going to take a lot of time and effort. We need well-trained teachers, strong curriculum, all of these different elements need to be in place for that proficiency number to be significantly higher. It's a dynamic test. It's an online test, so there may be some, test, anxiety issues that might be a part of it as well. But the standards are college and career aligned, and they're high. And we actually do see some evidence of, to Dr. Perkins's questions that are coming up, schools that are breaking the mold, that are saying that poverty is not the outcome that we expect of you in terms of academic achievement. Paramount in our network of schools is one of those schools. They have the highest Black and Latino test scores in the city and some of the highest test scores in the state. And what do? They do the basics. They have well-trained teachers, aligned curriculum. They're very rigorous about assessing and making sure that students.
You might have a high Hispanic or Black, population in the school, but is that broken down by race? Is the proficiency broken down by race so we can see who are making who's overachievers and whatnot?
Students are on track. If they're not, they come in and support those students to make sure that they can get there. So some schools, I think, are doing an excellent job. I don't have insight into every school district, so it's really hard for me to comment on, what a lot of other districts are doing. But I do know that the secret sauce of hard work is there, and that some schools are breaking the mold.
And this might be too general of a question, but when I look at the graduation rates across the board, I'd say it probably averages in the low 90s. Would you say that over 90% of the students that graduate in Indianapolis, Marion County are ready to go to college or enter the workforce?
Well, it depends what job or what you're going for. Sure, I'm ready to go dig some ditches or work at McDonald's. Why not? NASA, not so sure.
I think that's a tough question to answer. The data we didn't include, because on federal accountability, schools are supposed to measure grades 3 through 8 on tests, and then they have one test in high school, which in Indiana is the SAT. Now, that data has been noisy for a while, which is why we didn't include it. But I think that the SAT is a good indicator of whether or not students are college and career ready. It's just really hard to say. The state has also changed the graduation requirements over the years, and I know that they're taking a step back to look at what high school needs to be in the future. Hopefully we have high standards and high expectations coming out of that conversation, but I would actually recommend to the committee that they should participate in those conversations, because the DOE is beginning kind of that reinvention process right now, and Marion County absolutely needs to have a seat at the table for those conversations.
Yeah, appreciate you saying that, and I'll just finish up with the comment that I find it interesting that the graduation rates are so high when it looks like from 3rd to 8th grade we're failing our students.
Like they're not going to make it.
And I don't know if we just have a really low bar for the graduation and we're just trying to push them out and move on to the next class, and there's someone else's problem, but
good luck out there.
I think that's within the purview of this committee to look into.
I agree.
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would it be possible, as we get updates, to include somehow looking, like we have this proficiency by ethnicity and everything, to get the ethnicities to add up to 100%, so there are some significant populations missing. I know, like, for example, in Perry Township, Asian's not represented. It's probably almost all of the gap. I added up the numbers, and I know that with Hispanic you can't directly add them, but they add up to 71%. So in my home school district, we're missing a third of the population.
Yeah, so you're right. There are demographics or subgroups that were not included in this data. We chose the 4 that were most populous for all of the districts involved, but in the future, absolutely, it can be
Okay.
very easily integrated.
And then would it also be possible to get at a high level, because we're talking about the like 3rd through 8th and then skip to the graduation, would it be possible to look by district and then by the aggregate of the charter schools, what the, and I know this is probably a big chart, so if you wanted to sort of cluster it into elementary, middle, and high school maybe, but could we look at what the mix of the grade levels is? So for example, and I don't know if you know this directionally, but do the charter schools tend to skew more to high school level, and they don't have as many 3rd through 8th graders?
Yeah, we can break that down for you. Historically, many charters were kindergarten through 8th grade. That was typically what it was. Although I will say that in the last couple of years, the majority of students attending high school within the IPS boundary attended a charter high school. Okay. So it's roughly 50-50 at this point. That's not true everywhere in the county. Most of the charters are concentrated, with some noted exceptions, in Center Township or within the IPS boundary. But yeah, we could probably get an overview of where the charters sort of break down in terms of student enrollment.
That might be interesting at just even a high level, if that is a unique data point as to where the, I think last time we looked at some data that talked about sort of like the student's home public school district and then where they are going like into charter schools. But yeah, if there's a dramatic difference, like you're saying, where IPS, we're seeing people opt out into at the high school level, I think that's worthy of discussion.
And I'll also note that we see the most transfers in from other districts, regardless of where the charter school is, at the high school level. Yeah. So Heron, Purdue Polytechnic, these are schools that are attracting students not just within the IPS boundary, all over the county and also all over central Indiana.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So the next section is looking at proficiency by demographics. We are going to be looking at iRead 3 and iLearn again. Starting with iRead 3, white students dominate across all subgroups as far as having the highest proficiency, with the exception of mayor-sponsored charter schools that have a higher percentage of their black students proficient. Do keep in mind enrollment, though. Mayor-sponsored charter schools do serve a majority of their black student population as opposed to white. However, the same sentiment is true for a majority of the rest of the districts highlighted, with the exception of Beech Grove, Speedway, Decatur, and Franklin townships. When OEI looks at subgroup data like this, one of the things we focus on is gaps between subgroups. So to us, the smaller the gap between subgroups, the better, because that implies that there is an equitable education happening within a district or school building. So to point out the smallest gaps between all 4 subgroups, that goes to Decatur Township. Their largest gap is 9.1 percentage points between their black and Hispanic student population. The largest gap between all 4 subgroups is IPS. IPS has a 33.2 percentage point gap between their white and Hispanic students.
So are they saying like half of the black students, just over half, are proficient in iRead 3 or in reading, and then 83% of the white population or white students are proficient in reading? That's fascinating.
Here's an iRead 3 proficiency breakdown by socioeconomic status.
Did you see here? Do you see here? If you're
Paid lunch students have the highest proficiency in all townships except Pike,
man.
Warren, and mayor-sponsored charter schools. The largest gap between paid and free reduced lunch proficiency is Lawrence Township with a 19.8 percentage points. The smallest gap is Pike Township with only 1.2 percentage points between their paid and free reduced lunch students. And then next we have English language learner iRead 3 proficiency. We do not have special education proficiency data for 3rd grade, mostly because by 3rd grade not a lot of students have been identified yet as needing an IEP. For ELL students, The highest EL proficiency is Speedway with 75.7%, and the lowest is mayor-sponsored charter schools with 32.8%.
The shit.
Next is iLearn. So similar to iRead, white students have the highest proficiency among all districts. The highest proficiency for black students is Speedway, and the lowest proficiency
Well.
rate for black students is Warren Township with 5.2%.
To tell you what, Speedway knows what the hell is going on. Like, everybody's marking everybody on this. That's crazy. It's got to be because it's certain amount of students per teacher. If I had to guess, I don't know. I'd be interested to know if there was any data on that, like how many students per classroom.
However, IPS is not
Dude, look at this. Warren Township. Oh my God. All above. What is going on in Warren
far
Township?
behind, with only
Beech Grove
5.4% of
and
their black students
everything.
reaching proficiency.
Jeez.
For Hispanic students, the district with the highest proficiency is Speedway at 33.3%. With the lowest proficiency for Hispanic students is Pike Township at 7.7%. The district with the largest gap among subgroups
Jeez. Pike Township bros. I don't feel so good. What's going on?
is Washington Township. Washington Township has a 47 percentage point gap between their white
Jeez, look at Wayne Township. All these schools are terrible.
students and black students. The smallest gap is once again Decatur Township with 7% percentage point gap between their white and Hispanic students.
How are these kids graduating then?
And then here's iLearn proficiency by socioeconomic status.
Well, obviously.
The district with the largest gap is Washington Township with a 33.4 percentage point gap between their paid and free reduced lunch students.
No
And the
shocker
smallest
there.
gap is mayor-sponsored charter schools with only a 1.3 percentage point gap between their paid and free reduced lunch students.
This is what they
And
mean
then-
by equity. They want equity of outcome. If that the same percentage of kids that are having free lunches should be the same proficiency as kids that are getting paid lunches or paying for their lunch. That's what they mean by equity.
Here is iLearn proficiency by special populations. Speedway has the highest proficiency for both subgroups, 17.5% for their ELL students and 18.4% for their special education students. Pike Township has the lowest pass percentage for special education students at 0.9%, and IPS has the lowest passing percentage
Well, that's
for
no
ELL
shocker
students
there.
at 3.2%. Any questions?
Counselor.
I mean, I have an observation. I don't know that I have to put it into question form, but, I mean, you mentioned a few times throughout the presentation, keep an eye on Speedway, because they have a significant less number of people in that district. So I did that. Something that really showed throughout the presentation is that their scores were higher. And I think the thing that really relates to that is that there are less students, right? That they get more individual attention, in which, one of the huge deductions that I'm taking from this presentation is that when there's more options to provide, I don't know if it's smaller class sizes, right? I don't know what the teacher-student ratio looks like there. That could be an interesting fact to factor in and look at. But it seems to be that may be one of, there's many reasons that these scores are all over the place, but just from this, high-level brief overview of some data, from at least iLearn proficiency and iReady proficiency, it seems to be that if there's anything that we could take away as a city council, I mean, obviously we're very limited what we can do, but if there's ways to help get groups together in a smaller way, whether it's in, I know we have tutoring initiatives, right, and things of that nature, but it seems to be that may be a big highlighted point that I'm taking away from a lot of this, is that the bigger you go, the harder it is to keep up.
I think one of the longstanding questions and challenges in the way our school districts are drawn is that they were drawn a long time ago and may not necessarily reflect the most efficient design of how you might draw a district in the future. Some districts, and I'm not going to say which ones because I don't know exactly all of them, some districts accept any student transferring in from anywhere. So other districts don't accept students transferring in. They are required to serve the students within their boundary, but they may not accept students who cross over from one district to another. So you have some districts who will, have a lot of students coming in who have sort of very different parts of the city. I mean, if you look at how IPS is drawn, it stretches way far out into the Far East Side, way far north into Washington Township. You have a lot of districts drawn in a variety of ways. And so the way the population, the way the districts were drawn, I think matters a great deal. It also matters, whether or not a district has an open enrollment policy. If a student wants to attend that school district, are they allowed to enroll in that district even if they don't live in the district? For charter schools, I can't speak for others, but for charter schools, if you show up in their space, they have to enroll you anywhere in the county. I know, IPS is a fairly liberal open enrollment policy as well. And I know that because we share enrollment work with them through Enroll Indy, which, by the way, we should have them come and present in front of the committee. So I think I'm not trying to answer your comment, but I'm trying to, I think, out loud sort of process what might be some of the additional factors that we're not capturing in this data that could be a part of it.
Yeah, and as you're talking, like the things that I'm thinking about is, what we don't have, because what you mentioned earlier is we don't really have charter schools in Pike Township, right? And nobody from, I can't imagine, I can't say nobody, but I can't imagine driving from Pike to Indianapolis to take your kid to school. I mean, I'm sure there's some that do it, but that's a pretty big burden, right? And if what we've seen in data, like what I've clearly seen in this data, is that if you have a smaller school, the proficiency is better. So in that realm, the only way to get more schools in a district like any one of these out in the greater Indianapolis would be to increase the amount of charter schools in those districts, to start shrinking the amount of kids per schools.
I know Councilor Perkins is raising his hand. As someone who has run a school before, I think I'd really like to hear his insight.
Don't forget, too, that Carlos Perkins didn't want a charter school in Pike Township. This was not that long ago. I think this was last year that he was trying to do this. Maybe? I'm not sure. But, all right, let's see what he has to say.
Thank you. So I think the issue is even deeper than just the size of the school.
Is it?
But also more the resources that are available to the school. And so when you look at a deeper issue, you're looking at the per pupil allocation, how much that particular school district spends for each student. Oftentimes you'll see in the smaller school district that has more access to resources that there is sometimes 25, 50, if not 75% more than you have with larger school districts. So it's not necessarily the school size, but really the resources that are available to the educators that are within that school district.
But if you're a larger school, you should have those resources compared to a smaller school. So it's almost like the smaller school is doing much better than the larger schools.
So can we assume that where there's a reasonable staff-to-student ratio, that those school systems are performing on the higher end of the numbers that we're looking at? Because that particular overlay was not added to this presentation, the staff-to-student.
So that was data that was kind of difficult to come by. Every staffing structure is different at every school. You could pull the Gateway agency numbers about teachers, but it's hard to approximate. Sometimes they're just listed as teacher, so it's hard to approximate exactly how many teachers to students that a district might employ. That employment data is a little bit less clean and clear than the IDOE data that we were able to provide tonight.
But it would be good data to have. And I think this is the bigger deal. If when you have one teacher and you have 15, 20, or 30 students in one classroom, that's 15, 20, or 30 different personalities you have to deal with, 15, 20, 30 different ways of learning you have to deal with, and you're just one person. Maybe you'll have a helper, maybe you don't. But here's the problem. Here's we go. Old Carly Perkins, old Perky McPerkston, he decided to fight over the Hillsdale Charter School in Indy that was going to be in. And this is where our fear is that this school will cater to white students, ousting struggling students, especially struggling with struggling black students. A veteran educator and a senior pastor of Bethel Cathedral African Methodist Episcopal Church is that the one that doesn't eat fish? I don't know. We do not need this school in our district. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but it's illegal not to accept black students to schools, whether it's a charter school or not. If you're getting public money, uh, you'll have to have it. I don't know what would happen if you're like a private school. I doubt that would be any kind of discrimination as well, because any school is gonna want to have money, whether they're black, white, or brown. But good point by Michael Paula Hart pointing out like there's no charter schools in Pike Township, and thank Carlos Perkins, a former high school principal who lives in Pike Township, who lives in the one of the roughest neighborhoods of Pike Township. And he says he doesn't want any charter schools in Pike Township. So if there's any real reason to blame Carlos Perkins, it would be because of this. He's a dope.
Yeah, and Counselor Perkin raises a good point too, and seeing, and I know this is tracked on the state website, but seeing how much is allocated towards student in each one of these school districts.
If they're all the
And
same.
how that's affected even by referendum, because I remember looking, this was years ago.
Oh, yeah,
I think
good
the first
call,
time
actually.
Franklin Township tried to do a referendum, they were highlighting the amount of dollars per student, and I believe Franklin Township was somewhere around $7,000 or $8,000 a kid, and IPS was at 11,000 or greater than that, maybe like 14,000. But yet Franklin has higher scores with less dollars per student than what an IPS has.
I think you have to factor in the amount of poverty that districts have when educating students. It requires more resources per school to educate students who, may need additional supports. And so, again, the challenge with this data is that it looks like it's apples to apples. But in a lot of ways, it's apples to oranges, because we're only able to provide you with some of the inputs, right, that are affecting this information. Things that Dr. Perkins brought up, things that you brought up, like there are a variety of other data sets that are not included in this data that do affect what these numbers look like. We do our best to provide you with hypotheses of, how we think about this or how we look at this, but the reality is there are a lot of different other indicators that affect what these academic outcomes look like. We have some theories of change of what can be done, and I talked about them a little bit earlier. Great teachers, strong curriculum, resources, as Dr. Perkins brought up. Those are the kinds of things that could move the needle for students.
Dude, fucking students are being taught in a fucking barn like 100 years ago. Well, more than 100 years ago. So don't tell me that that's resources. It all comes down to the parents. The parents are not getting involved with their kids because they're treating teachers like babysitters. Teachers are not babysitters. They are there to teach. Parents need to be babysitting their children. And, if Perkins wants to talk about not having enough resources, listen, Pike Township approved a referendum this year, $14.5 million. So, hey, all of you in Pike Township that are bitching about your property taxes, well, guess what? Your property taxes are going up because that's where the money's coming from. So I don't want to hear it anymore. 52% of you approved it. So stop crying. And by the way, if Carly Perky starts bitching again in a few years, by the time his term is up, that they don't have enough resources. Well, obviously money is not the issue, because you just got another $14 million, which we know is just going to go to some more corruption, middle management, think tank bullshit, just so nonprofits can make more money.
but those are theories of change. Those are not all of the data points you could possibly kind of put into a model to look at what's going on here.
A lot of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think just one other thing to add here as we talk about Beech Grove and Speedway is the fact those are excluded cities that I know have a very strong sense of community and a very strong identity. Whereas, I'm not sure if that is shared across each township, such as, for example, I know that the Beech Grove mascot, I think that's a hornet. I think for Speedway, it's like a spark plug. I know what mine is in Decatur, it's a hawk, but I don't think I could tell you what any of the others are. And maybe that just has to do with a strong sense of community, a strong sense of value, and the fact that there might be other things there outside of the school system that are there to support the kids as well.
I think what he might be saying, and I might be wrong, is like they're much more community oriented, as in like a lot of ones aren't. So he's basically saying like Beech Grove and Speedway has a lot of community involvement, and what the Democrats don't like, which is a nuclear family, like actual family values. They want to see things better for their children. And I see old Perky is going to have a problem with that right here. I can already see it.
I think, Councilor Perkins, do you have something? Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
It was an excellent point, Counselor. I think we have a few more items on the presentation.
Yes, so lastly, we'll be looking at attendance and chronic absenteeism data. So attendance is defined as the average daily attendance for the entire school year. So for example, if a district had every single student enrolled show up for every single day of the year, they would have 100% average daily attendance, which is something I've never seen before. So chronic absenteeism, on the other hand, is the percent of students who miss 10% or more of the school year, which is roughly 18 or more days of school. A few things to note about attendance before we look at the data. First, attendance data is self-reported by the school, so accuracy is not guaranteed. Second, a lot of districts
Why not?
have, and
It should
schools in
be.
particular, struggle with a lot of transient student populations that can severely affect their attendance data. For example, you may have a student enroll in your school, stay there for 2 to 3 months, and then leave without saying anything. The school then has to kind of hunt that student down, only to find out that they've been enrolled in a school in a different county or a different state. And that weird in-between where they're trying to figure out where that student went can severely affect their attendance data as well.
Not only that, but there are students that come from different countries and they go back to their motherland for an extended amount of time. Like teachers have told me, there are particular students that a lot of their families in Canada, so they'll go back to Canada for a month. So, like, literally, the kid is out of school for a month because of family in another country. Like, why the hell are you here then?
So here's the average daily attendance for the 22-23 school year. Speedway had the highest daily attendance at 95.7%. The lowest daily attendance was mayor-sponsored charter schools at 89.4%. And for chronic absenteeism, for this data, the lower the percentage, the better. Speedway had the lowest amount of chronically absent students at 10.2%.
Jeez.
And with the highest rate of chronic absenteeism is mayor-sponsored charter schools at 38.5%.
Franklin Township with the W again.
So on those numbers, I'll just add a little color on that too.
Little color.
We have to remind ourselves going back that we have the highest FRL, the mayor-sponsored charter
Oh,
schools has
God.
the highest FRL numbers of the kind of groupings that we've had. And so, while the variability is not great on the average daily attendance from 89 to 95, that's significant. That 6 percentage point gap takes a lot of support and effort from schools in order to address. The chronic absenteeism number 2, I think, is important. It's defined by just missing 18 days. And if you stretch that over, a school year, 180 days, that's a couple days a month.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
too much.
if a student is missing a couple days a month across an entire school year, they're considered chronically absent.
What do they stay? Why are they staying home a couple of days a month?
And so
That's kind of a
we've seen
lot.
these numbers increase substantially since the pandemic. It was substantial immediately after. It's stayed high since then. And it's work that our schools are trying to do to reconnect families with school and make sure that parents and guardians and folks that are important in students' lives know how important it is to attend school every day and to not miss. Because if you, like I said, if you just miss a couple days a month here and there, you're considered chronically absent. You're missing a lot of days of school.
That's oh yeah, because that is a lot of days of school. But at least we can take the myth away that these poverty-stricken kids are their only source of food is from these free lunches. Because if it really was that important to them, they would be going to school and getting a free lunch. So it's obviously not that.
So I just wanted to add that caveat to the data and make sure everyone understands that this is something that a lot of our schools are experiencing and a lot of schools are taking seriously.
If you say so.
I will also add on that this is part of the reality of living in a post-COVID world, right? Where my experience being a school leader, things that when I was in high school, you woke up and didn't feel well, your parents said you had to go to school. The post-COVID world says you wake up and don't feel well, it might be something that is contagious for your school and your class. And
Oh, you mean like the flu or the cold?
so we tend to see, and we have seen an increase of students being absent from school post-COVID, in part because of this oversensitivity or sensitivity to what we experienced for 3 years.
Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we've also talked previously about the charter authority. Did we see any gaps in the data? So we've got and I guess maybe for clarity, is this, the mayor-sponsored excludes the charter schools that are in Marion County that are sponsored by other entities?
So I think we talked about this in our earlier presentation. And Maddie mentioned this at the beginning. There are about 15 schools that are not included in this data that are authorized by one of several different authorizers that we have in our city. And so it's really hard to, the new authorizers are popping up all the time, it seems like. So it's really hard to say, what those schools are doing.
Got it. Thank you.
Do you not have access to their data?
We do, but given how many that have popped up recently, we didn't include them. We're happy to, maybe if we come back and talk about charter schools, include them, but they're not included in this data set.
Can I make a reference back to both the iRead3 and the iLearn data? It is alarming to see at the third grade level the proficiency rate and then the difference in iLearn between third and eighth grade. What conclusion can we draw from the huge difference in the data between how students are coming into the testing space in third grade and then how they perform between third and eighth grade?
The parents are not getting involved. It's really just that simple. There are so many resources on the internet to help you with this stuff. The schools have resources to give you. Hey, how can I better this? Oh, well, they just need to focus on this thing. Like, it's not that hard, really. You just have to be a good parent. There's just too many garbage parents out there. So
I think it indicates that we have to think about supports differently than we have before. We've talked about this in our previous meeting, but I think doubling down on tutoring, both the kind that we do with Circle City Readers and others, is a strategy that we really, really need to kind of look at heavily. So we talked about Circle City Readers. We're, in schools in IPS and in Warren Township and charter schools. We're hopeful about the future of what that might look like. So I think that's a strategy that we have. Students have access to virtual tutoring through a program called Indiana Learns that the state DOE has authorized. So you, as a parent, if you have a student who qualifies, and I think the grades are 4 through 8 right now, could get tutoring not just for literacy, but also for math. We have to continue to invest in those kinds of strategies as a community, because that's one of the only ways to kind of close that gap over time.
So I've been making the argument for universal pre-K over the
Why?
last year, right?
Oh, that's what we need. We need more taxpayer-funded bullshit. Why aren't the parents just teaching their kids that just don't get it? Why aren't any of these elected officials saying, you know what, you need to be involved more with your children? That's all you need to do. Stop having the government teach your children.
To say that in order for our students to perform, they need to come in school ready. This data is giving me somewhat of a different perspective, right? Because it sounds like they come in okay, and we break them, right? It sounds like they come in and we're testing them in third grade, and they're performing 70 and 80% proficiency, but by the time they get to fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh grade, they're falling as low as 11%. Is that
Aren't
what's
you a
happening?
high school principal?
I
How
think
do you
it's
not
very
know
hard
this?
to say. I think you need all of it. An all of the above strategy is what's important.
Just keep throwing money
a lot
at
of
it.
students, especially students in poverty, benefit greatly from preschool, and having access to that, I think, is vital. I think there are a lot of other arguments you can make about preschool, not academic related, but in terms of family supports.
Yeah, you want to know why? Because they don't have a healthy family, and that's the truth that everybody is afraid to admit.
But when we get to this place, we need great teachers. They need great curriculum. They need supports, and then for students who are significantly behind, we need to have additional remedial supports, and that includes strategies like tutoring. They're super boring
Online
answers, I know,
tutoring,
but
man.
I think a mix of a variety of things are what we need to close
Guys are
the
the
achievement
worst.
gap that we have.
Director, outside of having great curriculum, great teachers, when kids come into the systems with on free and reduced lunch, that lends to things outside the school. Why is that a leading indicator on some of the stats that we see today? Tell me a little bit more about free and reduced lunch and how it impacts those results that we see.
Well, as we said, FRL is our proxy for poverty. It's not a perfect measure, but it's what schools use as that proxy. And we know families who are in poverty have a lot of additional needs, and there are a variety of services that might be available. But if you're hungry, if you're not sleeping well, if your housing is not strong, like there are a variety of different things that definitely affect schools. Students' ability to show up and learn every day. I will say, though, that students, in spite of all of those barriers that they might have, do show up, they do learn, and they do well. And teachers in the highest performing schools that we have high expectations for every child, regardless of their circumstances. We're trying to find ways to support families more holistically. The City Connects program that the City of Indianapolis, Mayor Hogsett, and the council invested in are doing that at about a dozen schools on the Far East Side. We'll have more information on that in the future about the services that City Connects has connected families with, and then what those gaps might be. But yes, we're trying a variety of different strategies to support families.
Yeah, because as I take a look, I think that's one of those areas, the residual effects of those that ultimately find themselves on free and reduced lunch. Those are some of the areas that we might be able to, as this body and our council, be able to have some type of impact. As you mentioned, some of the programming that
just
is
fix
a
my
result
road,
of the
bro.
administration and the council over the years. But I think that there's an area where we can kind of dive into, because that would be in our wheelhouse and our ability to make some change.
It's really not, though. It's really not. You don't really make the rules. You don't do anything, and you freaking clowns, don't want to admit the truth.
Any other questions? Sure.
Thank you. Looking back at the proficiency,
Oh, hold on, wait. What do we see here? Oh, Perky, Perky, Carlos Perky. He's on his phone.
by ethnicity and also by the socioeconomic status. It was mentioned that the gap between white and black students, it was mentioned that that ratio is preferred to be as equal or small as possible. Explain a little bit of what causes, in your opinion, what causes those factors and the rationale behind that statement.
Hey, Bootsy, are you ready to have this talk?
So when I'm thinking about student achievement data, I think about it in a variety of maybe orders. I think number one, proficiency is the most important. Are students on grade level? And number two, if we're thinking about achievement gaps, we're thinking about within the in-school environment, how are students doing within that school? And if you have a lot of students of one indicator kind of clustered in one area and a lot of students clustered in another area, in my mind, that means that there's an issue related to potentially resource allocation and supports. How are you routing your resources and where is that going? So when we're looking at that for our schools, that's one of many measures that we look at. And so when we're talking to schools about in-school achievement gaps, they should have a strong theory of change to help those kids with whatever indicator you're looking at, socioeconomic, race, ethnicity. What are they doing for those students within that school community? And if they can't answer that question, that's an area of great concern for us that we continually revisit. So I would say it's not the indicator, but it's one of several indicators that causes pause for us, and especially with our schools, asks us to investigate and interrogate what's going on within that school community and how is the school investing resources.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for that presentation. Appreciate it. We still have on the agenda Employee Indy. Will they be presenting? Awesome. Look forward to it.
Mr. Chair, while we're transitioning, just to address a little bit of what Chairman Booth just raised, when we look at kind of achievement gap based on whatever demographic, can it be race or gender, you're looking at if all things being equal, two students sitting in the classroom or sitting in a particular school should perform at the same level.
No, that's not how it works all the time.
When we see
that's what you would like, but that's not how the world works.
Data like we've seen tonight, where there's a huge difference in performance gap, then there are questions about the culture of the school, right? How are you interacting with students based on gender and or ethnicity?
Not really. And it's not so much the culture of the school, it's more the culture of the family.
While they're achieving at different levels within the same context, in the same grouping. And so some of the things that we have seen, in education, the issues around behavior management and how students are treated differently based on race and ethnicity. There are issues around teacher managing classrooms or teacher preparation and whether or not they are able to manage the diversity that exists within their context. So there are other school culture and school climate issues that come up when you look at data and see there's a big difference between performance based on ethnicity.
So what it sounds like Carly Perkins is talking about, Carly Perky is talking about, is that he wants schools to be segregated. That's what it sounds like to me. Like if you're a black student, he would want you to have a black teacher. And what it sounds like Carly Perky is saying is that he wants black-only schools and white-only schools. That's what it sounds like he's saying.
Would you say that lends to the importance of having diverse workforce in the staffing?
Oh, absolutely, and it lends to continuous training around diversity, equity, and inclusion,
look at Josh
around
Payne.
diverse learning styles,
Oh man,
around how we
hold
attract. I
on.
know
We got to go
one
back.
particular
We got to go back to instant
performance
replay.
based on ethnicity.
Would you say that that lends to the importance of having diverse workforce in the staffing?
Oh, absolutely, and it lends to continuous training around diversity, equity, and inclusion, around diverse learning styles, around how we attract. I know one particular school district that I worked with, one of the issues was around suspension of African American males that were suspended at a higher level than any other demographics that led to a difference in proficiency rate.
Why do you think that is, huh? Why do you think that is? Why were those African American juveniles or high school students, why do you think they were getting suspended?
And so there are opportunities for us to really dive a little bit deeper in the data to see what are some of the contributing factors to the numbers that we're seeing.
So again, Carly Perkey is saying that black students should not be suspended ever. And there should be black teachers for black students, is what Carly Perkey sounds like is what he's saying. And there just needs to be segregated schools, is what Carly Perkey sounds like what he's saying right now.
Thank you.
Josh Bain, let me tell you what. I know what you're feeling right now. I'm not there. I'm not there in person at that, but I'm feeling the annoyance of Carly Perkey every time he pulls the race card. It is so damn annoying.
Apologies, we have some technical difficulties. We're switching laptops.
We do have a printed version of your presentation if you're unable to get it on the monitor.
Oh, well, while we're waiting, so Carlos Perkins was sued last year from another candidate in the primary. There's Rosemary Turrentine, she was telling the election board that the address that he had moved to was less than a year of what you're allowed to be. So you have to have lived at that location for, I think, 2 years before you can run for that particular district.
Thank you for your patience.
And just by chance, so the judge ended up agreeing with Carlos Perkins that he was fine. And that was the same judge that tried to get John Rust onto the ticket against Jim Banks. Very interesting. I'll show you the data when we do our witty review video, maybe tomorrow.
My name is Marie McIntosh, and I'm the president and CEO of Employ Indy, and we really appreciate Chairman Graves' the invitation to share a little bit about the work that Employ Indy does more broadly around education and the workforce, and then getting more specific about funded initiatives that the city has invested in over the years and what's happening with those initiatives as well. Our goal is to spend about 20 minutes sharing with you a background on both Indy Achieves and on some of the broader work we do, and then to open it up for questions.
Thank you.
All right. And this is, of course, I want to introduce Esther as well before we get going. Go ahead, Esther. Or have Esther introduce herself. Flip it the other way. There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Esther Woodson. I'm actually the head basketball mom for Ben Davis Giants, so I know I got to get y'all out of here because there's 2 games tipping off tonight that we all need to see. But again, Council Hart, good to see you as well.
Education is so important, but
my name is
basketball.
Esther Woodson, Executive Director of Indy Achieves at Employ Indy.
That comes first.
All right. If we can just click this forward, Esther, we'll be good. All right, we're going to go over very high level, some background on why we do the work we do, our strategic plan, some of the initiatives we have, and specifically focusing on the ones, again, that the City County Council has funded over the years. So background for Employ Indy, our vision is around economic prosperity, really, for all residents in Marion County. Of course, we don't do that alone. There are loads and loads of other organizations participating in that overall vision of economic prosperity. But the way that we do our work is by really guiding our local ecosystem of partners and investing in them, those especially who are focused on promoting equity for underrepresented, underserved individuals in our community. And we do that in a variety of different ways. We have a whole almost smorgasbord of initiatives that we operate. It's important, I think, for you all to
Basically, they are the middle management. They are the people that are the gateway, and they say this is where the money. They're going to help out people because people are too lazy or too stupid, and then they're going to get a fee for it.
understand that as an intermediary, our number one thing that we do is work to connect, the community to the business, so that businesses have the talent that they need in the future. So we have a team of people that are constantly listening to what's going on in the business community, understanding what their talent needs are, and then that's being translated to our partners in the community, and connections are being made, and programs are being operated with that lens of, where our business is going in the community. So we have a lot of partners, over 150 partners. We define partner very broadly. These are folks that we actually have an MOU with, we're investing in, we have contracts with. You see that we work with a lot of K-12 partners. You can see live, if you want to check that QR code out, all the different partners that we have. And I believe that you all would, if you look at our sort of interactive map, you would recognize a tremendous diversity of names of organizations that engage with us across Marion County. So why do we do this work? Well, what we know is that the demand
Why do we do this work? Because we love money.
For talent and the skills that are required to really achieve economic prosperity are growing in our community. Data shows that coming out of the pandemic, that for the first time in history, I do believe, we have organizations that are tracking that they are going to require more bachelor's degrees than high school diplomas.
I don't think so. I just don't think that's the case, actually. I think this is just a scam to get people to be in a lifetime of debt with college.
And that is a
This
big
is just
shift
more propaganda
that has been
bullshit.
long in the making. I think also reflects today in our community that we are, businesses are really looking for some sort of demonstration of the level of proficiency, the level of skill that people coming into the workforce have. The other thing that we know that you all have been talking about in some ways today, or especially around graduation rates, is that our pipeline is pretty leaky. We start in our sophomore year, if we take a cohort of sophomore year students in high school and track what happens to them after they graduate or don't graduate, as the case may be, the reality is that many do not make it through the traditional post-secondary pipeline. In fact, it's only about 20 to 30% of individuals who make it through a traditional 4-year or 2-year program who started in that sophomore year. It's worse, of course, for people of color. It is more like 10% for those individuals. So there's a tremendous amount of work we have to do to really increase the throughput, if you will, of folks who have opportunity post-high school.
This is disgusting.
And if you look at our existing population in Marion County, I was just talking to the Indiana Chamber, and they have a goal that across the state we would have 40% of our population with like bachelor's degrees or higher, and nowhere in Marion County are we meeting that metric today.
Oh,
That's
darn.
not unusual for the rest of the state of Indiana either.
You're
But
not
you
getting
also
my
see the
money.
disparities across Hispanic populations and Black populations in our community. So we have a lot of work to do there too on just sort of raising all the boats in terms of skills that are really needed to achieve that economic mobility in today's world. And that ties to wage discrepancies. You'll see that people are being paid less for less education that they might have. None of this should surprise you, but it's been documented for our community what those wage projections are by entry-level education. So you can check that out too. So what do we do?
Yeah,
what is a
I'm
workforce board who can really boil the ocean, doesn't want to boil the ocean? What do we do to try to really focus our efforts? We believe that there are 4 pillars of what works for really any population in our community. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't matter if you're a high school student or if you're someone who's 25 coming out of like a returning citizen who would like to have a fresh start, a second chance. These interventions, our team over the years have proven work in partnership with our community partners. And so what we are working to do is really elevate and implement those initiatives with a lot of quality and build the partnerships that are happening in our community and the systems and the people who have to do this work on the day in and day out to really ensure that we can help our residents to achieve that economic prosperity. To give you an idea of all of these, I'll share with you my favorite slide of the many initiatives that exist at Employ Indy and how they fit into those pillars. I'll just walk you through them really quickly. When we talk about career-connected learning, our theory of change is that the more you connect employers into education, whatever education people are pursuing, if they're in 5th grade, if they're in 9th grade, if they're in some sort of university program, a short-term training program, businesses need to engage. And the reason they need to engage is so that people can see who they want to be in the long run and understand that more holistically. So we do a tremendous amount of work with our high school partners, with our middle school partners, primarily in helping them to understand, helping the kids to understand the many different professions that are out there that are growing in our community. And that is really what Talent Bound is all about. We do everything from career talks where we've engaged with businesses coming into high schools to do that work, all the way to some of these initiatives like Project Indy, where we're helping young people to get jobs in the summertime and beyond, or the Modern Apprenticeship Program, or Jobs for America's.
Yeah, this is interesting map. You know, that's what they're calling pedophiles now. Minor attracted people. Might have to change the acronym there, pal. Are you attracting pedophiles, Indy? Is that what you're doing?
Graduates, these are all initiatives that are helping individuals to have more experience in a work environment to help them get a better understanding of what type of education they really need to get going in their career. We also believe in coaching and training. That's what Esther's going to speak to in just a minute, that it's a both and. It can't be an either or. You really need, especially for people who have maybe more barriers to getting into a degree program or something like that, or those individuals who are looking for a second chance, they have to have relationships with coaches where they are barrier busting. For those individuals. They got to have people in their lives who are helping them to figure out how they pay for an unexpected car payment or an unexpected emergency that happens, or pay for.
Listen, we got a lot of stupid people out there. We need to teach them how to manage their money well. But don't you worry. I know the place that can do it for you. I know the place that can teach these morons how to make sure they don't go broke or they don't spend their money on the dumbest shit ever.
For a bursar bill that will keep them in college and not have them dropping out because of a small fee that they can't afford to pay. So we have to have both and coaching and the training programs in order to ensure that students are completing their education and moving on into good jobs. On the other end, with Talent Connection and Good Jobs, we also do placement services. We have a public workforce system. We operate our American Job Center on the east side of Indianapolis.
What you
have
are.
a weekly job fair, for instance, there called Wednesdays at Work 1 that is well attended. We've placed over 2,000 individuals into what I would call entry-level roles through that initiative. And then we also have recruiters who help to place individuals into higher level roles. We call it the Any Job, Better Job career continuum.
Any job, better job.
And we really believe in the importance of helping people to actually connect to those good jobs, helping for their lives to be improved, to change as a result of the opportunities that are made available to them. But really, the only way we can do that is if we have a lot of good jobs on offer in our community. So we also do work with our businesses to help them to ensure that they're offering the best jobs that they can to their employees. And what I mean by that is that we'll talk to them about wages. We'll talk to them about what it is to have a good wage in today's community, how they might make them more competitive and retain their talent more effectively. We have a whole team of folks who work with businesses, big and small, to help them to consider their training programs, their pathways within businesses, how they create an inclusive environment so that individuals going into those jobs can really thrive and stick with those companies. And then we do that all with an eye towards systems change. Esther will be able to speak to this as well, but Indy Achieves really started as an initiative where we were testing out some models that existed in other parts of the country that were best practices. And we're testing to see if they worked in our community. And now that we know that they're working, we really want our university partners, our higher ed partners, to expand the best practices and have them take them on, have it not just be the responsibility of Indy Achieves. We create bigger impact in that way. So we'll always have an eye towards how we can be shifting systems to serve people more holistically as well. So that's the overview that I wanted to give to you all. And then what you see in your packet is a tremendous number of initiatives with some pictures for each of the different initiatives that we run. If you all would like to know anything more about any of these initiatives, any of the outcomes that are associated with them, some of the goals that we have, we are happy to share those individually or at a later date. I will stop quickly on Project Indy to share that, we just celebrated the Mayor's Celebration of Diversity awards luncheon last week, and that luncheon generously
I wish
supports
there was a camera
the Project
facing
Indy
the council
initiative.
members right now.
And we're really proud of the connections that are made between businesses and young people on a sort of geographic basis to help them see what opportunities might exist right around the corner from them.
Look at this. Provided transportation for 180 Teen Works summer participants and Uber vouchers for 15 Works Pro participants. Hey, thank you, taxpayers. And I don't care about this, the bond bank grant. This all comes from taxpayers, all right?
So that they can get into better jobs.
Ugh,
all the research
worst.
shows that the sooner you're working, the more potential you have to earn over the course of your lifetime, and the more relevance your education starts to have. So that's some of the important work that that really the city has invested in. And then we will jump to Indy Achieve.
Oh, hold on, wait, hold on. Total enrollment 2903, total completion grant receipts 573, total Indy Achieve Scholar receipts 23, team size 7, current annual investment is 2.5, total city investment is 10.5 million, total service fees collected 2 million. So you're not getting a return on your investment at all. Ugh.
So Esther can share a little bit more about all of the good work that's happened since the inception of that program.
This is like a net negative.
Thank you, Marie. You all can see there the work that we are doing at both Ivy Tech and IU Indianapolis. I'm getting used to saying that. And again, once again this year, I did receive data today yesterday from IU Indianapolis. Our retention rate, so that fall to fall retention rate with Indy Achieves as compared to their peers is 10.7%. That is huge. So that means that Indy Achieve students are matriculating at a higher rate, coming back to school again that next year at a higher rate than their peers. And again, as you all know, preaching to the choir with us only serving Marion County students, again, so that is compared.
Okay, so they're getting a retention rate. And 21st scholar enrollments increased by an average of 23%. All right, and what happened after that?
To not only their peers in Marion County, but also our donut counties as well. One thing, though, that we have done, I did want to highlight that since the change in 21st Century Scholars, I myself am a proud recipient of the first graduating class of 21st Century Scholars back in 1995. And as you all know now, 21st Century Scholars is is opt-out instead of opt-in. So what we did with that, because a lot of our efforts, actually my colleague Vanessa Noyola, a lot of her time was spent in the middle school space, making sure the counselors enrolled their students, whether that been at sporting events, muffins with moms, donuts with dad, what have you. And again, to toot our own horn, we were able to make an impact. The class of 2026, that 19.5 completion that we did ourselves within Indy Achieves as completing applications for schools around Marion County. But now with the changes in 21st Century Scholars, what we have done is that with our completion grant students at both Ivy Tech and IUI, what we did in the past was we gave them money. They had that back debt with the institution, and so we paid that back debt for them and said, hey, go be successful. But with the change, what I thought was that if I only give you money to be successful but don't give you the tools, you're going to end up back in the same boat you just came out of. And so what we started doing was actually programming with those completion grant students, just as we've done with our Promise students at both institutions as well, That has proved to be amazing for our students. Those students, again, who are those, especially those non-traditional age students. While they're non-traditional age, you can't just think since they're 30 and over that someone has sat down with them and gone over a resume. A lot of them, even at that age, no one's ever told them what their resume should look like. So we've done those type of things for the students, mock interviews, job shadows, job placement, and that has proved to be huge within what we have been doing now at Indy Achieves, especially again with the shift in 21st century scholars. But I can actually show you better than I can tell you.
For those who don't know who it is, because I didn't know what it was either, here we go. What is it? It is an opportunity for students to afford college in Indiana. 21st Century Scholarship pays up to 100% of tuition at public colleges in Indiana and part of the tuition at private or independent colleges. It does not cover books, room and board, parking fees, lab fees, yada, yada, yada. So basically tax-funded scholarships is what it is. Yippee, huh? Hey, your roads are fucked up. We got public safety problems. We got infrastructure problems, but at least people are getting their college paid for free. But guess who has to pay for that? Me and you. Thank you, assholes.
We hope.
Yes, we hope here.
What accountability then does that teach that person? Then that means they have no life experience on like, oh, well, if I just do this, then somebody else is going to pay for it. We as a community have a moral responsibility to make sure these people don't fuck up and make sure that they don't go through life thinking they can just do whatever they want without consequence.
Here we go. Let's see if this works.
Can you hear it? Can't even hear it. Yeesh. Wait, what? Oh man, the acting on this thing. Good God. Wait a minute. She's a nurse now. She knows all about health. Oh my. Oh yeah.
I'm just looking at this video.
Alright, good enough. Can't even hear anything.
Just looking at this video actually reminded me of the group that was just in front of us that talked about Latino students and where they are. As you could probably just hear Janet just a little bit talk about how she was the first in her family to graduate high school. So to be where she is now, again, with the help of Indy Achieves, that is huge for her and her family.
Listen, without Indy Achieves, I have a stupid familia, and they did not graduate high school. And I need Indy Achieves to tell me how to do things in my life. Without the government, however will I live my life?
Let's see if I can get back here. There we go.
So, as we wrap up, I'm going to ask Esther to flow through. As we wrap up, I'm going to ask Esther to flow through the other initiatives. We do receive some funding from the Elevate grant through the Central Indiana Community Partners or Community Foundation that has helped us with our Yes Indy work. It's really important work that we're doing out in the community. The Parks Department has supported us with having an open gym at Watkins Park that invites these individuals in to play basketball, and then we recruit them into services to help a lot of young people get reconnected to education and workforce opportunities. So that's a great initiative that's received a lot of support. We thank you support, and we thank the city for that. And then as we keep rolling through, I think we can skip Job Ready, Indy. It's a great badging program, and we've talked a little bit about Talent Connection already. So Esther, let's keep rolling all the way to, I just want to share with you all that at the very end, we have a few slides that show you guys some of the impact that we've had at Employ Indy. If we can get to that, we have a few strategic indicators that show, for each pillar of our work, what we're trying to achieve on an annual basis. So in career-connected learning, we have a goal this year of 37,000 work-based learning activities that we hope to achieve across all of our high schools. 37,000. That's not individual students, but it's like how many exposures have they had to different employers or different experiences across the high schools that we work with.
What? Like what? Like what experience? Because I see the work-based learning activities. Hey, we taught this kid how to mop a floor because maybe one day he'll be a janitor.
You can see that we upped that game because in 2022 we had 27,000 activities.
Oh,
So we're really working
so much
to
money
push
that's
forward
wasted.
in that space. Indy Achieves has many more graduates today already, like going through the moment of graduation in many respects, but this is just one example of one of our coaching and training outcomes. But overall, we're looking for thousands of, I think it's something like 2,900 individuals to complete coaching and training programs across our community.
They need to make sure
For
they get
Talent
their fee
Connections, we
for it,
set our
too.
goal this year for 2,500. I've already exceeded that placement goal, so we're really proud of that. And then Good Jobs is holding steady with the number of increases in wages at, over $5 million across 92 businesses in our community, many of them small and medium-sized, who've committed to raising their wages. So just a small sort of segment of some of the work that we're doing. There's some of our goals that we have for the coming year that we're wrapping up. We just want to make sure that you all are aware of some of the work we do and that we can answer any questions you have specifically about some of the investments that the city has made.
Hold on. Go back to that. Facilitated 37,000. Coaching and training. Told them about enrolling in a coaching or training activity. Increase in the number of residents age 21 or secondary. Oh yeah, and this is the bit right here. We just want to make sure that we're getting people into a lifetime full of debt because our masters are hungry.
Coming year that we're wrapping up.
You're going to pay me.
And,
so I
we
can
just want to make
teach
sure that you all are aware of some of the work we do
people
and
to go
that
to
we can answer any
college.
questions you have specifically about some of the investments that the city has made. With that, we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I definitely appreciate Work 1 being in District 9 on the east side of Indy. So I've been there many times, including the Wednesdays, the Work Wednesdays, the kind of a job fair that they have. In fact, it was part of a live presentation I would do quite frequently back during COVID. So a lot of great services out of that building, and I probably should get over there pretty soon to meet you all again.
We'd love that. Thank you.
Thank you for your work. This is very helpful. It is somewhat sobering. I am on the education talent pipeline graph that kind of captured my attention. Looking like probably 28% of our students who graduate from high school actually enroll and complete a college degree.
Right.
That is sobering.
It is.
And it said that we have a lot of work to do in terms of this education pipeline.
What a dumb thing to say, really. Hey, we don't have enough kids going to college because, it would make more sense if they don't know what they're doing when they're 18 years old, but everybody, let's confuse them and be like, hey, you know what? The first year you could just take, F-off classes. Who cares? But by the way, you're going to have to pay for that eventually.
In terms of
For the rest of your life.
I want to connect back to the previous conversation around graduation completion rate, right? And across the 10 school districts, we're seeing an average of about 90%. How many of those students do you believe are either college ready or employment ready?
Well, depending on which college courses you want to take and depending what job you want to take, man. Listen, if you're going to be flipping burgers or digging holes, they're ready to go. College,
And
not
again,
so
I think
much.
it's hard, it's hard to say
Why
on
can't
an
any of these
aggregate
people just
basis
tell
how many
the
we think are
truth?
college ready and employment ready. What I will say is that many of the businesses that we talk to who are receiving newly minted college graduates are concerned about the skill sets that college graduates are having. So if that is an indication of the work that we as a community have to do to make sure that we're not only building within our future workforce the creative thinking, the analytical thinking, the problem-solving skills that are needed for our sort of 21st century economy, in addition to all the important sort of core content and core curriculum that is learned, I think we're, doing ourselves a disservice. And a lot of the research shows that a lot of skills are learned best, on the job or hands-on.
No kidding. You mean repetition makes you learn more? Who would have thought?
And so I think that's why at Employee we have such a focus on ensuring that, even what Esther shared about Indy Achieves, that we're helping students to understand a resume, that we're helping folks to understand the world of work and demystify a lot of the rules that exist there so that they can be prepared when they're ready to make their next choice on either, more education or a career. And it's not an either or. I also just want to emphasize that for me, we've really got to create lifelong learners today because the world is changing so fast and technology is changing so fast. Everything is shifting. So we really got to create like a sense of curiosity and, agency amongst our student populations that they really want to go out there and, and seek out their future and what they're looking for.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do these programs apply, at least the college education programs, apply to part-time students?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Esther. You can share more.
Yes, we do, especially at Ivy Tech, again, serving those non-traditional students that they are taking part-time credits while they are, again, adulting, for lack of a better word. But yes, especially with our Indy Achieves program, we are serving those non-traditional students who are not full-time students. And Councilman, it kind of happened too unexpectedly because at the end of the day, and I always tell Marie and Rodney this, at the end of the day, my motto is do no harm to the student. That was not what we initially pushed out to do, but we saw that a lot of the trends within Ivy Tech. So again, while these students are non-traditional students, still working, caring for family, loved ones, what have you, we did not want to stop that support for them, being that they are, again, going less than 12 credit hours.
So, loaded question. I knew the answer, but I wanted you to say it, and you said it in such a fantastic way. But the reason I said it is because a lot of new members on this committee, but I was what was the acronym I learned today? FRL student growing up, and I was also a 21st century scholar.
Oh, really? So you... You should be thanking all the taxpayers then, Michael Paulhart. You basically got a free ride, thanks to people like me, who didn't do that. Motherfucker.
And I was a part-time learner, right? It took me 8 years to get a bachelor's degree and worked full-time doing it. And, there's so much potential and so many people out there. I mean, look, I'm sitting right here right now, right? So I think education doesn't stop. It's something we have to keep, using these support models that we have here in any capacity possible. Yeah, as always, I'm here to support, but just wanted to make sure that that was mentioned today because I know we put a lot of focus on, kids coming straight out of high school. Right, and it's not the end of it. It's not even the end of it when they start their first job, right? I mean, and you were alluding to that too. Where I'm employed, I sit on a mentor panel, right, where I mentor these. I call them kids, right? I feel like I'm getting old, but they're coming in, right? And they're
all right.
23, 24
onward and upward,
years
Michael.
old, sometimes 22, and the connection to. Okay, everything, and these are the traditional students, right? I'll use the phrase there, but the kids that never worked, like actual work while doing school, right? And if I'm an employer and I'm hiring for somebody, I'm looking for somebody who's done double duty, right? I see a lot more value in working, not that that's preferred, but there's a lot of value in those individuals and want to make sure that we as a community are investing in them as well.
Thank you. I think Councilman Hart was, 4 years ago we first met? 5, almost?
It was, yeah.
Yes, but absolutely. And because like you said, it's not, like Marie said, it's both of them, you know, that we want to make sure that we're supporting those students like that, because again, life is lifing, correct? But we want to make sure that we're supporting those students.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Dude, you know,
What are
it's
the
just
things that are in place to,
hold on, Carly. You know, this is like irritating to no level because I've never had a free ride at all. Like, like my I ended up going to Ivy Tech for like a summer class. I paid for that. Everything that I've done, I've had to pay for. And it's just annoying. And for me, like it builds character because that means like I bought this, which means I'm going to take full advantage of this and not mess it up. And when you have these dipshit people that get a free ride, they don't respect it at all. They're just like, oh well, whatever. It's like a rental car. I'm just gonna beat the shit out of it, or an apartment, or any kind, or a hotel room. Like you have zero respect for what you just got. It's not yours. You're not attached to it, and it's just so freaking annoying that people are able to have these things without any kind of consequence when they completely fuck it up. Like there needs to be some kind of accountability. Like maybe you should just pay it back.
and I'm just thinking about we're in graduation season now. All of the students across the county, the city and county that are getting ready to graduate from high school, what do you have in place to capture those that you did not capture during the middle and high school years, but now will realize at June 1st that I'm no longer in school and I need to figure out life?
Hey, we're gonna get you. Hey, we're gonna get you, and we're gonna bring you over here. Sign this paper. You're going to college, and you're gonna be in a lifetime of debt. Get them.
That's a hard question. We've worked, so Rodney Francis, who couldn't be here tonight, but he heads up all of our sort of coaching and training initiatives at Employ Indy. And when he first came to Employ Indy, we worked together to talk to different districts about sharing with us the list of students that they were worried about or that they thought might not make it to graduation, so that we could have that kind of data and do outreach to those young people who often just need to find whatever that like trigger is or spark in them that will like make them believe in their future, like have more hope for what's going to happen for them. So I guarantee you that they're feeling like a failure through school, right? And so we got to catch them and help them to, regain their confidence. And it was really a hard journey.
Rodney,
we worked with a lot of districts, and I think they were not eager to share some of that data for understandable reasons, which is why we opened up the approach that we did with partners like the Boys and Girls Club on the Far East Side and Cafe to run like what we thought a lot of young people might be doing after they graduate. If they don't have a lot of plans, like playing basketball, doing different things in the summer. And we started capturing those young people that way. We're still looking for ways to more what Rodney would call like more hooks for how the young people
trick
who
the
don't have much of a plan
into
post
signing
high
their
school,
soul
how we
away.
could catch them, what else it might be that would interest them in coming.
How do we trick
and just
these
like
children?
hanging out and then engaging them in more services. But we work with a tremendous number of community partners already who are really dedicated to serving the population we refer to as opportunity youth, and it's one of our key metrics on how do we like reduce that number and increase the number of young people who really do have great plans for what they're going to do for their future.
Thank you. I'm going to put a plug in. I know that Chairman Graves just talked about being on the Far East Side and in his district. We would love to see how we can do some work in District 6, in Pike Township, Washington Township. As the data show that we saw earlier, our young people are graduating, but I'm concerned about what they're doing after graduation, and so we'd love to see how we can double down on the work.
We welcome that opportunity. Again, we moved to the west side with Watkins Park, but there's more. That's not Pike and Washington Township, I know. So we're happy to think about how else we could partner in that area.
You know what's kind of funny is that they're talking about, it's like, well, you got these 18-year-olds who don't know what to do with their life, but yet it's okay for them to come to the decision to chop their cock off or chop their boobs off. and then like take all these hormone blockers. It makes total sense, right?
And honestly, Councilman, if I could clone Kiana Miller, who is the senior counselor at Pike High School, I would. We do amazing program there. And what we've been doing too over the summer is because the data shows that the summer melt. 2 out of 5 students who were accepted to whatever college or university, they never make it there. Where do they go? What do they do? And so what we're trying to do this summer is try to hook now, well, school's about to be out, those juniors who are about to be seniors in the summer, so that let me give you the taste of what that college experience could be like. And one thing that we have done too, and I wish I had pictures of this event, we have taken current freshmen and college sophomores back to Pike High School, whether they graduated from Pike or not, but to speak to the current senior class. And so my son, by choice or voluntold, from an HBCU, we had a female from IB Tech, Latina male from IU Indianapolis, my neighbor's daughter from Tennessee State University,
Latina thin
and also
male.
a young lady
Okay.
from IU Indianapolis. You could hear a pin drop in that room. I myself have been out of IU Bloomington for, oh gosh, it's about to be 25 years. Whoa, what? Sorry.
Keep going, Esther.
Okay.
Don't reflect too much on age, right?
But again, the students hearing it from their peers, it hit home for them. It hit home. It wasn't like us talking about college. They were hearing it from their peers. And after the program is over, to see those students exchanging numbers and social media handles and things like that, Miss Miller at Pike was like, we have to do this every year, because she has also seen that change in her students, just because they saw someone who looks like them and what they can become.
That's right. Those are good prevention strategies. We do intervention too, right? Like, so whether we catch them as they're leaving high school and hopefully make that transition, but then also if they have left and they don't have a plan, we would love to expand how we do some work there too.
Any other questions?
Just one more for the employee Indy side. I was sitting here thinking another anecdotal situation, but I mean, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this situation, but really trying to figure out, like, the expectation of when you leave high school is you're supposed to know what you want to do, right, for the rest of your life, which is a very big thing to try and figure out. Does
But I
employee
just
Indy have
say-
any initiatives to help students try to figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of what we do in that career-connected learning space, and there's a
Okay.
big focus at the moment at the state level on, how you ensure that there is more consistent career coaching happening for all high school students, so that they're all leaving with a plan. I acknowledge that when I was in high school, I too was not exactly clear on what my next steps would be. I think most young people make a lot of shifts. We all do. Not, adults make shifts in what they're doing with their careers. But what's most important, I think, is that young people are leaving with a plan that they can work to implement, and kind of, maybe what their backup plan is too. A lot of people talk about college in that regard. Like these are my top schools I'd like to get into. This is a backup school. But there isn't as much of a conversation about, these are the skills and the careers that I would be interested in pursuing, and this is the education that I should go for because of that in this moment. And if I change, I change. Then I've still learned a lot of good skills that will help me on my journey in life anyway. So we are working on that process. There's just a fun fact. We had a meeting yesterday with the DeBruce Foundation out of Kansas City. They have a lot of great free resources around career coaching that we're looking to integrate into a lot of our programming in that career-connected learning space.
Wonderful. That is great to hear. Thank you.
Cool.
Any other questions from council? Good. I thank you for that presentation. It was amazing. Very important information, filling in the gaps, giving us some details on what we can work with here on our council on this particular committee.
Yeah.
If no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you. So properly moved and seconded, the meeting is adjourned.
Oh, finally. Good God. An hour and a half on how much of our tax-paying money is being wasted. Well, if you made it to the end, congratulations. You are the top-tier favorite person of mine. Message me, and I will give you a candy bar of your choice. Serious, but not serious. Funny enough, if you did make it, if you made it all the way to this point, the Parks and Rec Committee meeting was also like an hour and a half long, and they have not posted the video at all, and that was 2 days ago. So it looks like Jared Evans is under the corruption wheel of zero transparency, which is no shocker because Jesse Brown is also on the Parks and Rec Committee, and he refuses to release the body cam footage of when he called the police abolitionist, called the police on a black juvenile that allegedly hit him. So I guess we'll just keep going next week of whatever happens. I kind of want to do a Woody review video, but we'll see. Until next time.